Welcome students, my name is Irene Dunham and I will be your presenter. Today we're going to talk about some very important points when meeting a German professional. As most of you are professionals in the safety field, there are things that are non-safety that you will have to understand in order to be able to have a successful meeting. Some of the things that we'll be talking about are paperwork and credentials, the greeting, how do you greet a German, dressing for success because dress is very important for different occasions, dining with etiquette, so you need to know which fork goes where and how to use everything. You'll also need to know how to close the meeting. So with that at hand, let me introduce myself again. My name is Irene Dunham. I am half German and I have dealt with the German people on a regular basis, actually, because my relatives are German. But besides that, when I worked for the University of Alaska Fairbanks, I was entertaining German professionals both in the teacher realm as well as the students. So, passports and visas, that can just drive anybody nuts. But it's really important that we talk about passports and visas. Before your client or your person that you're hosting ever comes to America, they need to make sure that you need to ask them, is your passport current? And if they're going to be staying a long time, is their visa current? That's really important, especially if they're going to be here for 3 months or more. And then you'll have host paperwork. You'll have paperwork that you have to fill out for your company as well as the Department of Immigration. Appropriate greetings. When you meet a German, there is so many very appropriate things you can do and inappropriate things. First of all, when you meet them, you're going to want to meet them with a handshake and make sure that it's nice and firm and it goes web to web and shake so that they know that you're quite able to do what you're here to entertain them with or to teach them. There are very unfavorable and inappropriate ways to greet a German. First thing is hugging. They like their space of about arm's length all the way around. That's their personal space. Please don't try to hug them. They wouldn't like it. And even worse is if you kiss them on the cheek. They will take their napkin out or their hanky and they will wipe that kiss away. Now, you're not going to feel real good about that. They're not going to like the fact that you put saliva on their cheek. So don't kiss them. There's no bowing unless they are mostly with Asians. Now, there are people that come together as one group and they meet usually at the same time at the airport. So no bowing unless you see that they're all bowing to you. And for goodness sakes, ladies and gentlemen, please don't curtsy. I've seen that happen and it's not pretty, not on either side. Gifting is really important. Now, they're going to come with a gift for you. They are not expecting a gift from you right away. They are probably going to expect it toward the end of their meeting. So be prepared, know how many people you're hosting, and try to get an idea while they're there of what they like, if you don't know it already. It's better to have a secretary kind of probe and find out. Dressing for success. This is really, really important. One thing I can tell you is that you should be very observant of your guests. You should know, are they going to show up in shorts? Are they going to show up in formal attire? Are they going to show up just casually dressed? Or are they going to be in work attire? But to keep things on a safe side, make sure you have appropriate clothes for all occasions. If you go out to dinner, for instance, you're going to want to wear something a little bit formal. If you're taking them to a very fine restaurant, certainly you're going to want to dress in shirt, tie, or formal dresses, ladies. So that's really important to know. Now at this point, I'm just going to hold up for just a second because I've given you a lot of information. Are there any questions? Oh, seeing no hands, we're going to go ahead and move along. Be conservative in your attire. Germans are highly conservative. Ladies, do not show the chest. It's really inappropriate for a German to see that. They get the wrong idea, and that's not the idea you want to put out anyway. And gentlemen, please make sure that your clothes are pressed and ready to go, because that's exactly what they're going to have. They're very proper. And then speaking of being proper, there's dining, and we're going to talk a little bit about how Europeans eat. They eat with a fork and a knife at every meal. A fork and a knife. They don't cut anything with a fork. They're always going to use their knife or their fork to hold the food and their knife to cut it. So make sure, ladies and gentlemen, you know how to do that. And many times the Germans will take their meat, not their vegetables, but their meat, and they will cut it and put it on the back of their fork and eat it. So don't be offended when you see that. That's very common. They also use spoons for anything that's liquid. That's going to be, not their drinks, of course, but their soups and any kind of stew. They're going to use a big spoon. So just know that. It'll be at the restaurant, so not to worry about that. But if you are hosting them at home and there is a soup, please make sure that they have a soup spoon. This is really important. Don't ask your guests why they eat the way they do. It makes them defensive. Germans get very defensive very quickly, so please don't ask them about that. It's very inappropriate. Large meals, and they have their large meals at lunchtime. In Europe, specifically in Germany, they will have a nice piece of pastry and coffee, usually for breakfast. That's their breakfast. And then at lunchtime, which they usually eat about 2 o'clock, they'll have their big meal. It would be our dinner meal. So be prepared, if you have a lot of them, to treat them to a nice large meal for dinner, or for lunch rather. And then come dinner, they're going to want their what would be our lunchtime meal. Now understand that Germans normally don't have any drinks with any meal. They don't drink water usually, because their water isn't that great over in Germany, so they don't make a habit of drinking a lot of it like we do. But at breakfast they'll have a cup of coffee and that pastry. At lunch they'll have a glass of wine. Now our restaurants, they all serve water, so they'll probably want to enjoy it just for the experience. But understand that usually it's wine or coffee. And then about mid-afternoon, about 5 o'clock, they'll want their coffee and their whatever, their crumpet. And then about 7 o'clock, they'll want their lunch, what would be your lunch. So just understand that things are a little turned backwards on that. And then in the evenings, usually before bed, they like a cocktail. In Germany, it could be anything from wine to schnapps to any other kind of liqueur. So understand that. Next thing is doing business. Now we're getting down to the nitty-gritty. At this point, any questions about eating? Yes, ma'am. Your question again, I'm going to repeat it for everybody. Is it appropriate for you to mimic what they're doing for eating as far as turning around the fork? No, it's not important, but please don't point it out to them. Know your craft. If they're coming all the way from Germany to work with you on a project and you don't know what the heck you're doing, that can be very, very bad. Know your craft. Know it well. Don't invite Germans over here unless you really know what you're talking about. And if you don't know what you're talking about, please pair them with someone else. Be prompt for all of your appointments, because they will be early, and if you're late, they won't like it. So they're very prompt and proper. Understand that. And then be clear on your expectations of the meetings that they'll be in. If they're here to learn, make sure they're learning what they want to learn. Yes, the question. Again, I'll repeat the question. The question is, do we have to make sure that they absolutely learn what they're here to learn? And the answer is, it's up to them. Now, all of you are here to learn today. I'm calling you students, but we know that you're professionals. So it's up to you to absorb what we're teaching. Understand what your guests expect of you. For instance, if they're here to learn about running heavy machinery, please teach them. Understand that that may be an expectation of you, and please try to make that clear before they arrive. So the conclusion of the visit is very important, almost as important as the beginning of the visit. Be complimentary. Understand that they have come, you have hosted them, they are your guest. Treat them like a guest all the way through the end. You know, you might say something like, gee, I really admire your method of learning. You learned a lot. Or you might say, I am so glad that you chose me to host you in my country. There's also make sure you escort them to the airport. Make sure they get completely checked in, because things go awry at the last minute. And it can be very scary for your guest if they don't have what they needed at the airport. You can call and say, hey, go back to the airport, or go back to their room, they forgot their visa, or something like that. And then there's the same salutations as the greeting. You'll again shake their hand, thank them for coming, and stand back, give them their room, remember that. And also, when they're back in their country, either do it by email, but it's really nice if it's done in handwriting on a postcard or a letter. Send them a note thanking them for their visit in your country and that you enjoyed hosting them. You might make a note, if you're trying to win their business, you might make a note about how you saw during their visit that it was really great having them there. We think that a collaboration would be just the best thing for both countries. So it's a sales pitch too, but more than anything else, it's solidifying that visit and your future with that particular company. So the important points, again, I'm going to go over those, is paperwork and credentials. Make sure all those are in order. Your greeting, make sure you've got it down before that you get to the airport. You don't want to be unsure of that, because the Germans, they pick up on it right away. Dress for success. So each meeting that you have, make sure you're wearing the proper attire, whether it's a suit, dress, or your field clothes. Dining etiquette, make sure you understand it beforehand. If you don't, go to a restaurant and ask the maitre d' to show you how it works. And then closing a meeting, make sure you close it properly and then everybody's happy when they leave. So with the conclusion of this presentation, are there any questions? Hearing none, I want to conclude this meeting and thank each and every one of you for showing up and entertaining the thought of me trying to tell you about Germans. Again, thank you. Have a great day.